Sure.
So that is one thing about Gaurav which I really liked very much, and I also learned how to maintain database and correction log from him. And second thing was that he was very prompt in asking questions. The questions were very pointed, and after every discussion, we had a very clear actionable that okay, these are the three things I would like to achieve by the next session. And last thing which I would mention is about the duration. Like although everybody wants to clear in the first attempt, and that's what we all want in whatever we do. We want that we should be able to get whatever we want in the minimum possible time. Gaurav prepared for almost an year, and his English was fantastic. I mean, since he is from US and he has been there in US for such a long time, English was not a problem. But when it comes to these standardized tests, these tests have their own norms and expectations, which sometimes take time. I mean, it's not always the case, but then, what is commendable is the kind of patience with which he approached the whole test. I did see that, at times he was frustrated. Why same thing, same result after
Yeah.
the test? But then he never gave up, and he came up with surprising me every time that now I booked it for this date and I'm going to do it once again. So this is something which is really commendable. So I have asked a few specific questions to Gaurav yesterday about the preparation and anything which he has to share. So I'll now request Gaurav to take it forward from here. At the end, you can ask questions, how he prepared, and anything that is there in your mind. And I would request Gaurav to answer at that time.
Sure.
Over
Thank
to
you
you.
so much for giving me an opportunity to connect with some of the people who are actually kind of having struggle, which I used to have, and so I completely relate to what they're going through, and I've been in the same boat, I would say. So, and now to begin with, I think let me start with a brief introduction about myself and my journey with the IELTS exam, and then I can deep dive into the tricks which I use, and I'll be also sharing my screen and showing you some correction logs which I used to maintain. And lastly, then we can discuss about some questions or doubts if you guys have. So to begin with, so I have been born and brought up in India, in specifically in Delhi. I did my schooling over there. I did BBA over there, and then in 2016 I came to USA, and that's when I was pursuing for masters. So I have been in USA since 2016. It's been a few years. So it's like I have also always been in India and Indian education system. It's not that I've been in USA, so I have a little better hand in English than you guys. So I've been in exactly same journey which you guys are currently. So I gave my IELTS exam. So I gave IELTS exam 4 times, and there is another English competent exam which is self-pip. I guess few of you might be aware of that. I gave that 2 times. So I mean that. So I have put a lot of time, energy, and money into these competitive exams,
You took
and
TOEFL also.
yeah, TOEFL was basically for masters when I came here.
Yeah. So here we
So
have a person who has taken all varieties of tests. So you will not find, I mean, a single person who has taken all the types of tests which are in the domain of standardized English tests. So you can tell us about those tests as well. Yeah, Gaurav, please continue.
sure. So I think the very first IELTS exam which I gave was before I met Rajiv sir. So I studied on my own and I gave the exam. And I was kind of targeting a certain benchmark in IELTS general, which was 8,777, 8 in listening, and 7 in all the remaining sections. But the first time, I think I fell short in 3 of the sections. But so I wanted to persist again, and I understood there were certain gaps which I have. So I was just randomly searching for some online tutoring for IELTS, and that's how I got connected with Rajiv sir, and we used to do online sessions. So I was in USA and he was back in India, and we were always connecting online on Hangouts, sharing screens, and exchanging a lot of communication over WhatsApp, phone. So that was basically a medium of communication. So initially, then he started from the ground level. He understood where my weaknesses were. So we basically worked a lot. Then, I went for a second attempt, third attempt, and then after third attempt, still I was not able to secure the benchmark. In Then I thought maybe IELTS is not really for me. I should try self-pip. Then I studied for self-pip on my own. I gave two attempts. Still, I was not able to achieve the benchmark which I was trying to achieve. Then I I kind of paused for some time, and then I thought maybe I should give IELTS again. As CELPIP was a little new exam, and I heard over internet that in CELPIP they have like little different standards where they uh, kind of like checking system is little different. So I thought let's go back to IELTS and try it again. So I connected with Ajit sir again, and since I had given so many attempts, and there was a lot of weaknesses which I had pointed out at that time, with a lot of correction logs, uh, from listening, reading, writing, and speaking was not a challenge for me. So then I do remember we used to have a lot of brainstorming sessions wherein I used to ask so many questions to sir, and he has always been very kind and helped me with all my weaknesses, and eventually all my weaknesses became my strength, and I was able to uh, score good marks. And I think the final exam for me, the results were 9 in listening, 7.5 in speaking and reading, and 7 in writing. So that was the final result for me. And of course, that was something beyond than what I required. But again, the more I have, the better score I have, the better it is. So let's break the further conversion into different sections.
Just give me
So,
1 second. I
sure.
think Srishti is trying to join. Yes,
Okay.
Srishti. Yeah, it's going on.
I just let her in the meeting.
Yeah, she's in. Yes.
So now I think it would make sense if we divide, like talk about sections, like how to attend particular sections. So firstly, let's begin with the listening. I'm sure
I,
everyone is aware of.
yeah,
Yeah,
Gaurav, I have a request for you. If you can show the corrections log, do you have that there with you right now?
yeah. Eventually, I will be
Okay,
sharing that.
okay. So you can
But
start with that. Sure.
yeah, so I think in the listening, so I'm sure everyone is aware of the pattern. We have 40 questions, and I was struggling somewhere between 30, 32, 33. Sometimes I used to get 35, 36 as well. But again, it was like fluctuating every time. And the most important thing which I learned about listening is that there was a pattern of my mistakes. So after creating a lot of correction logs, I was able to understand that pattern, the pattern of weakness. And at the same time, so whenever a lecture starts, let's say section 1 starts, then okay, you have some few seconds or minutes, I don't really remember, to read first 5 questions. So it is very, very, very important to use that time wisely. So initially, all the questions would be easy, and you would have more time in hand to read them. I think time in hand is always probably same, but it's just that the questions and the complexity around the questions become difficult. Difficult, so it is not easy to read all the aspects, all the questions which the speaker would be talking about. So with a lot of practice, I was able to reach a level uh, where I was not only reading the in scope questions. By in scope questions, I mean, let's say the first section starts and then you have, let's say, a minute or something to read first five questions. I was not only reading first five questions, I was actually going beyond them and scanning all the other questions. So for me, MCQs and the last section wherein we have like I think 10 questions, 10 usually they are fill-ups. So those were the hard parts for me where I used to struggle. So I used to kind of utilize my time wisely and go over them, because I know when I will reach over there, I am looking it for the second or third time. So it becomes easy to navigate through the speaker and jot down the answers which are correct. So use the time which you get wisely. Don't just stick to the first five questions, or when you go to section 2, don't only stick to 10 to 12 or 15 questions. Go beyond that. Again, that is something which will come with a lot of practice, and if you can reach at that level, then it would be very easy to kind of crack the most difficult questions. So that is one thing which I would say about listening. Now I would be sharing my screen and showing the correction log which I maintained for the listening practices. So can everyone see my screen?
Now, see, this is something which is very interesting. Gaurav, you can just maximize the screen a little bit. Probably it will be easy to see. Yeah, this is fine. Now, if you can see serial number, book 9, test 3, taken the test on this date, score was 39, one wrong. The question was question number 38. It was fill up the blanks question. The question was, I mean, the reason he went wrong was that he lost focus. And the remedy is that listen carefully, error type, lost focus. Can you see this? So this becomes a very, very clear log where you can maintain all the small mistakes. As we all say that, we do not make big mistakes, but we make small mistakes many times, which constitute a big mistake or which eventually make it larger. So this is what it is, and I think this is something which is unique about Gaurav. You can see the tabs there: listening, reading, test analysis. We can go through them, but then this is like a complete database of your errors. I haven't seen anyone loving his mistakes so much as Gaurav.
So I
Yet,
think I mean, I would not say that everyone should, become a expert in Excel. It's just that I'm coming from this background, and this become very easy for me to maintain. But at the end of the day, the goal is to understand what are the mistakes and why are you making those mistakes, and how you should correct them. If you can reach to that level, then it becomes very easy. But Excel does come very handy, especially for a person coming uh, from IT background, because over here it allows me to filter on my mistakes. For example, if I just press on accent, like how many mistakes I made, which were due to I was not able to understand the accent of the speaker. So then it helps me to understand, okay, so far only the two mistakes I have made because of this reason. So this really kind of helps to understand, like, kind of drill down what are the mistakes and what is the frequency of mistakes one is making.
yeah. And
So
in case anyone needs any help with Excel, I think me and Gaurav can come along and teach you these very, very simple things. I mean, they are like maybe 15, 20 minutes thing. Whatever he has used is not something which is advanced feature of Excel.
yes, definitely. So now coming back to our conversation for the reading section. So I would be stop sharing my screen for a bit. So in reading, I think there are three sections or four sections. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rajiv sir. It's been a while I gave IELTS exam.
Yeah. So when it is general, we have around 4 to 5 sections. When it is academic, it is just 3 sections.
Okay. I
Now,
believe I believe it is other way around.
I just want to make a small note here. So even when I mean, when we have people who are preparing for TOEFL and other tests also, one thing which is very important is maintaining a log of your errors. What happens is we commit an error and it goes away. So irrespective of the test, this corrections log is something which you must maintain, and that is something can really help you, because that becomes something to fall back on when you are done with the session. Yeah, as far as these sections are coming, as far as these sections are concerned, Gaurav, yeah, there are 3 sections in academic and
Okay.
around 4 to 5 in general. So last
Okay.
two are the longer ones, and
Hmm.
initial 3 sections are the smaller ones.
I believe it is other way around.
Now, academic is 3 sections,
Okay.
40 questions, and general is chota chota sections initially, like 2 to 3 sections of that sort, and then one big section, one big
Okay.
part.
All right. So I think at the end of the day, the important factor is that it is about reading, and you need to strategize it in a way that you are not only able to complete all the questions, but at the same time you need to jot them down into the answer sheet. So that's where things get a little tricky. So there are like different categories of question in reading, and so all the type of questions have different strategies. I think if I'm right, probably reading has three sections. Sorry, IELTS General has three sections, and probably academic has more than three.
No, 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 no. See, what happens is in general, the
Hmm.
number of sections is large, more than 3, but the size of sections is small.
Okay.
So in academic, they have got less sections, but large sections. In general,
Okay.
they have more sections, but small sections.
All right. Okay. So so uh, so help me here. Like the category of questions, I remember there were fill-ups,
Yeah,
there were some MCQs, there were some map heading kind of questions, and
yeah,
then true and false, right?
correct.
So the most important thing is that I mean, easy thing for us is that all the questions and answers come in one flow. You will not find a first question. You will not find answer for first question at the end of the passage, and the answer for fifth question at the beginning of the passage. It will always be in a flow from up to down. So it becomes very easy for us over there, because if we have a question number 5, which for which we are able to find answer in maybe third paragraph, then it makes sense that question number 4 would be before that. And other than that, so fill-ups is usually easy. I never found challenge with that, but sometimes MCQs were a little tricky. So you need to kind of read it in a way that, okay, and yeah, I never read whole passage. Sometimes I'm just looking at the questions and jumping here and there between passage and questions. But at the end of the day, I never read the whole passage, because I think it is a waste of time. I just kind of skim it, have a glance at it, and just reading the important words, and I'm skipping some non-important words like is the or anything else, but really focusing on the important words where like if the passage is about an animal, then I'm making sure what animal is it, a lion or something else, and where it is being talked about. And so other than that, true and false and not given, I think false and not given are a little tricky. So uh, it becomes tricky if we overthink, because if something is not given in passage, then it is a not given. So if you have that kind of focus, then it becomes easy to not get confused, become false and not given. Other than that, now talking about the map heading, which were the most challenging for me, wherein we have 7 or 8 headings, we have 6 paragraphs, and we need to figure out which heading uh, ties up to which paragraph. So earlier there were a lot of challenges for me, and again they were coming because I used to read whole passage and try to make sense of it. But if you are not there to make sense of the passage, you are not there to understand the passage, you are just there in the moment to get the right answer out of the passage. So just have that kind of mindset. And so one of the tricks which really work for me is that uh, I quickly glance over 8 headings which are given in the question, and then there are 6 paragraphs. So then I look at the paragraph. Let's say there are 8 lines in a paragraph. So the usual structure in English is that there will always be an introduction in the beginning and then conclusion at the end. In between, there will be some details. So I used to avoid the details. So first step, read all the 8 headings. Second step, go over the first paragraph, read first 2 lines and last 2 lines, and then go back and look at the 8 headings. Then you would easily able to figure out which are out of the scope and in scope. Out of the scope is something which is not in not in that one particular paragraph. And let's say if you are lucky, you would able to get only one which is in scope. If But in usual case there would be two, so you can mark them and move ahead to the next paragraph. Eventually, when you would have uh, looked at all the 6 paragraphs, you would have already marked 4 or 5 questions correct, and there would be no confusion for you in between whether it is this heading or that heading. And then you can always come back and look over the remaining paragraphs in detail. So all of this sounds a lot, but if you practice, you can easily kind of navigate all the questions within 5 or 7 minutes. But yes, this requires some good level of practice. um, so that's pretty much from the reading part. Now I'll just show you the correction log, which is similar to what we saw earlier. Quickly sharing my screen, and we have the reading analysis over here. So it is pretty much the same template, where we have question numbers and
Can you
what
just
went.
maximize the screen a little bit, Gaurav, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, like, what book is it, question numbers, and what went wrong.
And FLT, I believe, is like full length test.
Yes, yes,
So yeah, so why you took all the sections together, listening, reading, writing, and speaking. That's what you mean by FLT.
yes, exactly.
So if I see 9 FLTs, which means this is a database of 9 full-length tests wherein you did it in the actual environment, starting from listening to reading to writing to speaking.
I
And
think probably I did more than 9. It's just that this correction log is not having all the data.
yeah, so see, this is something which is very, very important as he was pointing out. I mean, practicing, see, 9 full-length tests. Now, these are not individual tests which were broken into, let's take listening first and then take a break and then take reading first. No, this is a full-length end-to-end test, and which errors actually happened in those tests. So every full-length test is actually an effort of around 3.5, 4 hours, which means like we are finding here the data of around 36 to 40 hours of work. I
And I
mean,
think it is very important to take a lot of full length tests, because your mind and body really need to kind of have that capacity and exhaustion level to sit in an exam for 3 hours back to back giving the test. You need to have that kind of stamina,
yeah.
and that will build with practice. So if you don't have that stamina, your listening can go good, reading will go okay, writing will definitely go worse. At least that's what my scenario was. Now, talking about the writing,
Now, once again,
um,
I will just like to see the kind of errors here. If you look at this, the error
sure.
type was lost focus, hidden answer. The synonym was supposed to be found, tricky synonym, lost focus, and assumption, lost focus, hidden answer. So this gives a very clear idea. Means, see, he has never written question was difficult. It was more like lost focus, which is like he's trying to point on himself, saying that I lost focus and it was not beyond me. Kind of, I could have seen it a little better.
Yeah, because
So
when I go back to those questions, a lot of questions were like the answers were literally in front of me, and they were pretty straightforward.
yeah, great. So I think, yeah, I'll definitely ask you to share this corrections
Sure.
log, and I'm going to give it to all. And this is something which is a very good format you can follow.
Yeah.
Yes, we can move on to writing.
Sure. Now going over the writing, so that was the most challenging section for me. I'm sure Rajiv sir do remember. I think 80 to 90% of our time was only about talking about writing and what are the mistakes I am making. So one thing which really helped me was again correction log, but I maintained it in a little different way. I'll try to pull that up. So one big challenge which we guys usually have is that we are not in habit of writing things down. I mean, I gave the written module, and in USA we don't have the computer module, so it was important to kind of get back to old school and do a lot of writings. I used to write just for the sake of the practice of writing, and just for the sake of writing it quickly. I used to read and literally write a lot, just by like literally copying it. And then for copying that, doing that activity, I used to go online, and there are tons of written material available online. All the 9 bands or 8.5 bands writing which actually were there, I used to look at them and write them, just copying them. And then I used to time myself as well, that in how many minutes was I able to copy. And the next time I had to make sure that my speed is quick in order to write them quickly. So I was working on a speed. I was little bit working on my handwriting because there were a few words which were very not easy to read. Like I used to make R as an E, but then sir told me to use this R instead of the other one, so that at least examiner can read. At the end of the day, writing does not matter, but it should be readable. So some of the mistakes and which I made in are like documented over here in writing. So I used to use a lot of markers because I think it just helps mind to pick up, kind of remember them more. Like green is something which is correct, and yellow is more like something which I wrote which was incorrect. So I will definitely share this as well. So there were a lot of spelling mistakes which I used to make and I still make.
So this is
And
like apart from the essay, whatever things he could pick up, he has compiled all those errors at one place, and this becomes. I mean, this is a better teacher than me. Your
yeah,
corrections
so so
log, yeah.
so all these correct statements and incorrect statements are coming from the essays which I wrote, and Rajiv sir corrected me. Don't write this, instead write this. For example, the whole world is walking towards the new system, like Amazon system. So this is something which I wrote, but Rajiv sir said this doesn't look right. Just say adopting new system, adopting the system. Then so at the end of the day, I think it is more like mental patterns, mental habits which are kind of deep inside our mind, and we tend to write same thing again and again, and yes, in the incorrect way. So if we maintain this kind of written log, and I used to go over them literally every day, morning and night, so that I can kind of change my mental habits. So these are like, everything is coming from my uh, writings, all the essays which I used to write, less, letters and essays. I can share this as well.
Sure, sure. This will be great.
Have an ad was a big error which I used to make.
It's good
And
to go back to all those errors. They are in the past now.
maybe if I'm giving IELTS next time, but I don't think I have to.
Yeah.
And then I realized that a lot of spelling errors which I was doing were more like because of E and A, some kind of I don't know what's even that, but a lot of E mistakes I used to make. So I just went. This is something which I did beyond my correction logs. I just went online and extracted all the uh, words where this E sound comes, and some kind of difficult spellings, because these are the words which I'm literally using every day and still making misspelling errors. But since I'm working on computer, then it just helps me to do the autocorrection. I don't really care about that. But when I'm really went for writing, then writing in the IELTS exam, then there were a lot of mistakes which I make.
You see all these. I mean, I never told Gaurav to do this. This is something which he did all on his own to improve upon the writing thing. And this is a clue to, I mean, a great way to learn spellings. You can break them and use their phonetics to remember them.
Yeah. So
That is
I
great,
think
Gaurav.
at the end of the day, the most important thing is to understand what your weakness is and how you mitigate it, and make sure you don't make that mistake in the actual exam.
Yeah, this is fantastic, Gaurav.
Thank you. Of course, it was not possible without your help.
I think, yeah, you came with a lot of persistence and faith, which is again very important. You kept on working. So first of all, accepting that, oh, I'm not right at this point. There is a way to
Hmm.
improve it.
Yeah,
So you did that, and I think it really helped.
yeah, definitely. So that is all I had. Other than these sections, speaking was not a challenge for me. I just used to go over some online speaking material before the class, so that I know like what kind of questions should I expect. Other than that, I never studied for speaking.
Okay. So, any questions you have? Before questions, I would like you all to just jot down all the things in the chat box, whatever you have learned. I'm also writing them down, and let's see how many things you remember from this session. So, let's start with writing itself because we have just gone through the writing section. So, you can tell me what all things you remember from the writing that you would like to implement. Maybe you can write three things which you would like to implement from the description of writing section Gaurav just gave. You all can type in the chat box, you know this? Yeah, I can see all of them. The corrections log every day and night. Use phonetics to improve spelling. Yeah, this is important. Give more tests. Yeah, this is again full length tests. So that's about writing. I think that's pretty much most of you I see are already good at listening and reading. Writing is one section which seems challenging, and I'm glad that you remember all these. So we will compile this. I can just compile this and share it with you. So you would have all of them that there with you. All right, Gaurav. So any other questions you have? You can just unmute all of them, Gaurav, in case I've made you the host. So in case any of you have any questions, you can ask Gaurav related to IELTS or TOEFL also, and we'll try to answer them right away.
I think they should be able to unmute themselves. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Nancy.
Hi Gaurav. So my question is about that computer-based test. Can we go over the questions in computer-based test, like in listening the way you did?
I am not sure about that. I
So
think
yeah, I
Raju
can
sir, you
answer
can
that.
take
I
that
can
question.
answer that. Yeah, you can go back to the questions. It is exactly the way the pencil and paper test is. So after the test is over, after you have taken the test, you get 2 minutes to go back to all the questions and make any corrections if you want to.
So before the test, we cannot go over the question if they give.
Before the test also, it's the pattern does not change. The pattern is exactly the same. So they show you the questions first. You know, the way it says you have 30 seconds to read the questions first. You can always go to the section and read the questions first. The pattern does not change. The pattern is exactly the same the way it is in paper pencil test. The only thing is that the medium is different.
And one more thing, like what did you change in your writing that you after 3 attempts? You
So I think
some
the very
strategy, right?
sure, definitely. So I think the most important thing is to write the right answer first, because there are different kind of questions like opinion essay, advantages, disadvantages, and there would be few more. So uh, it is the very first thing is to make sure you know what answer to write, like what category of question it is, and then you have to then only you can oh yeah, so in the initially, so I think I should have talked about this before. So we get I think one hour for writing, and out of which it is advisable that 40 minutes we spend over essay and 20 over letter. So in order to start with the writing, yes, I used to start with the essay, but at the same time I used to spend like roughly 4 to 5 minutes or a little bit more in planning the essay. The very first step is to understand what category it is, and then you need to plan the essay. Like, okay, in first paragraph I used to literally scribble this on the question paper. P1 paragraph 1, I want to write this introduction, this is what I'll write. P2, okay, I need to give my opinion. So I will maybe talk about something. Just you're not writing everything, you're just writing brief notes, uh, which will become the target of that particular passage. And then P3, then P4 would be conclusion, of course. So something like that. So then you can plan your structure and plan a draft. So this is what I'm doing in initial 5 or 6 minutes of my writing. And then once I have that in place, then I'll start writing the essay. And yes, make sure this is something which will come with practice. Make sure you have at least 3 4 minutes towards the end to proofread it, because when I used to proofread, then only I was able to kind of understand, okay, this is wrong, which I have already written. Again, it is all about being in pressure and writing everything the way you are writing, and making the some silly errors here and there. But when you proofread once or twice, then you can kind of catch them and correct them. This was something which really helped me in writing. And same thing goes for letter. Plan for first initial few minutes, write it, and then do the proofreading. So going back to your question, what changed on my first writing test and how did it improve towards my fourth writing test? Then firstly, writing the right question, the structure. So I think there are a lot of structures available. I think many were shared by Rajiv sir, but also I used to went online and on YouTube. I think Rajiv sir only shared about a person called Jay from some Easy or something.
Yeah.
J
Jay and
is
Liz.
yeah, Liz.
Jay also. Jay and Liz. Yeah, they are two
Yeah,
good
I think,
sources. I always
yeah,
recommend.
I never followed Liz, but I always followed Jay, and he has very good structure, which he kind of gives a walkthrough. Like there are like 5 or 6 videos on YouTube, so I followed them for the structure. Other than that, he also have one video again that was shared by Rajesh sir, where he says what is the difference between 7 band and a 9 band essay.
Yeah,
So yeah, so basically the difference is that there are a lot of compound and complex sentences, which really helps catches the eye of the reader, the examiner. So that is something which will really distinguish between 7 and 9. Yes, and maybe Rajisa, you can point them
yeah,
to that video. That would be a big help. After listening to that tutorial, I started to make those kind of sentences, like compound sentences, and other than that, yes, my vocabulary improved a lot because uh, it was my fourth attempt versus first, and as I was finding a lot of weaknesses, I was working a lot on my weaknesses. But I never kind of went online, or okay, I need to learn these 10 words today, or like I did not have that kind of uh, practice. But there are certain words which you must use, and we are literally using those words in our day-to-day life, no matter in school, college, or at work. It's just that how to write them in your essay is something which you need to learn. They are not difficult words. You are not increasing your vocabulary. You are just using your vocabulary in a way that you're throwing a lot of synonyms. So like some of the words which everyone knows. I'm sure you guys must be knowing a lot more words than me. Like therefore, maybe you want to make a note. Therefore, in comparison with, between, furthermore, um, in conclusion, like how to start the conclusion paragraph, or towards the end. I think that will become a little casual.
yeah,
On the flip side,
yeah.
so these are some. Yes, I did learn some of the phrases like uh, two
I have
sides of
repaired the
two
view. Yeah, two
two
sides
sides
of
of
the
a
view.
coin,
Yeah,
uh, two different wings of a bird, something like that. But again, you don't need to go crazy over the vocabulary. That is something which you should not. That should not be your focus.
yeah. So again, let me request you to put down all. Gaurav, are there any points? I hope I've not cut you there.
No, I think other than that, these were the major differences.
Yeah. So again, I would request you to jot them down. Let me see how many things you have taken from this question. This is very, very important. I mean, 90% of the participants, or at least 80%, struggle with writing. And in case you are starting, I would advise you to put maximum time and efforts towards writing. And yeah, so let's just quickly jot down all the points related to writing which you think are useful.
Yeah, I think Rajisa, you once shared an Excel with me which has had a lot of words
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how
yeah.
to
Those
use them in a
phrases, correct.
sentence. So I think it has about 30, 40, 50 words, but uh, you don't need to memorize all of them. Just pick 10 or 12
Yeah,
words,
it
which
has
you already, yeah,
174 phrases, but you don't have to remember all those. As
yeah,
Gaurav is rightly pointing out, you can
exactly.
take like 10 or 20 which are
Yeah,
favorites. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
advocate the view undeniably.
yeah, exactly.
To quote an example,
Yeah, just
yeah,
pick exactly. Yeah, that was my favorite. Just pick those words which you are comfortable with, which you already know, and all you need to learn is how to apply them into your writing. And
yeah,
these are like 10, 20, 10 or 12 or 15 words which you can use in any kind of question, any kind of writing question.
Exactly. See, essay is a collection of fixed scenarios, as we discussed yesterday also. So those scenarios are that you are writing an introduction, you are supporting a view, you are against a view, so you are opposing a view, you are writing a conclusion. Now these are five scenarios, four or five scenarios, isn't it? So for these scenarios, if you have some fixed phrases, like if you are, for example, writing an introduction and you want to state something obvious. So if you are stating something which is obvious, you can say undeniably, undeniably
Yeah.
Gaurav is a great guy. So this is something which is stating the obvious. Now, then you have to state your opinion. So you can state for stating your opinion, there can be some fixed phrases. I advocate the view. I support the idea that, according to me, from my perspective. Now, these are the ones which are used. So, this is what he's pointing out. We always use them in our day-to-day life, but then if we become a little conscious of when to use which phrase, and we kind of appreciate the fact that there are some set scenarios in the essay, it becomes easy to remember and use those phrases. Yeah, over to you, Gaurav. Thank you so much. This is something which is
Sure. So any
very
more
useful.
questions before we sign out?
Yeah, must be about 11:30 there.
Yeah, about to be 11:30.
Okay. Yeah, any
Hi
more?
Gaurav, Asma this side. I just want to say thank you so much for all your effort and thank you so much Rajesh sir, for making this video because it's a great learning for us also. I just want to know one thing because I have also given IELTS for several times. So I just want to know from Gaurav's end, like what keeps you motivated during the during that tough time, and how you keep motivated and you you challenge yourself. No, I need to do this again and I have to crack this. So
Mhm.
this is very much needed as of now for me.
Sure, I definitely understand. So if you don't mind, can I ask you how many times have you given IELTS? IELTS?
So this is my going to be my fourth attempt actually.
Okay. So I'll answer your question afterwards. But so what I would say is that since you have given 4 attempts, it is very important to kind of step back and understand what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and really work on your weaknesses. So Rajiv sir is the best person to kind of communicate about that, and he can help you to uh, understand how to make them your strengths. If you would able to make all your weaknesses as a strength, then that is the only gap which you have. So now going back to your question, so I read a lot of motivational books. I go on YouTube and listen a lot of motivational speakers. That is something which really helps me to motivate myself. And at the same time, the most important thing for me is to uh, be committed and make sure that I am putting my 100%, because what result would be, that is something which is out of my control. But if there is a gray space left from my side, then I would blame myself. So all the weaknesses which I have are actually the area which require hard work from my side. If so, other than that, I think I like to set a lot of goals. I like to uh, kind of, so I sometimes do some sort of visualization. Okay, where I was and what I want to achieve in life, and what would I get once my goals are achieved. So this is something which do help me to focus well. But at the same time, hard work is quite essential, something which I learned from my writings, quite essential. So hard work is very important. And yes, it is depressing. There were days when I was very frustrated. I was ready to quit. I was looking for other options, but those options would have mean like a big hole on my pocket. So th- rather than going that route, I decided, okay, let's give another try. Let's give another try. Eventually, it will happen, but yes, you need to be positive. You need to be hardworking. You need to work on your weaknesses and focus well.
Thank you
So
so much.
I think this was one of the most important questions, and this is not just important from the perspective of test, but also from our life. That learning from our own mistakes is what he's pointing out, and it's very very important because all of us come with some unique set of weaknesses. It's not common with everyone,
Yeah.
but then if we are able to identify them, write them in the corrections log, write a note of how to improve it, that becomes like a plan. So every weakness is a plan for an improvement. It's like another milestone waiting for us. And I think Gaurav would be glad that he has taken it so many times.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, I mean, we should
Yeah.
fail or something of that sort. But then, yeah, Gaurav, please take.
Exactly. So, what would have happened if I would have stopped after my second or third attempt? Then I would have not able to achieve it. So
Yeah.
that okay. Then going over my final attempt, I again fell short in writing. I scored 6.5. It was not a 7. But again, there was a little opportunity over there to send it for evaluation. I could have missed that opportunity. I could have decided to go for another attempt, but I was like, I think I would miss one opportunity. And if I have more than perfect score in all the other sections, why not give a try for evaluation? Yes, that comes with a cost, but uh, I decided to go for that, and yes, it resulted in a good score. So you need to take a lot of chances. You need to make sure you're working very, very, very hard. At least there should not be a day where you will say that, oh, I could have done a little more. So that is something which keeps me really motivated.
That is great. I think beyond IELTS, this is something which at least I can definitely learn from you. Keeping that uh,
Sure.
positivity and going to the gym. I think you do go to the gym as well, isn't it?
No, not these days.
But
These days I don't want to go to gym.
during those days, you used to tell me that I'm doing
Yeah.
this to keep myself up, and so pursuing some
Yeah.
kind of hobby, something which is
Yeah.
beyond what you're doing. And one thing which is very important is that in your hands it is only to give your best, which is very very important. Results are definitely not in our hands.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Any other questions? If you have, you can always write them to me, and I'll not take much time from Gaurav. It is 11:30 there, and he has his work from home going on all across the world, all thanks to Corona. And as it says, Corona, तो काम मत करो ऐसा नहीं है, but then kind of we are. So thank you so much, Gaurav. And if you have any other questions, feel free to call me or send a message to me, and we'll try to get them sorted.
Gaurav, can you also send some of your writings for last practice before the test? Or
I will try to find. I don't
and
think
when
I
did you
have.
give this test?
I have
Six to 7 months
a
back
few of
was my
them.
last attempt. Yeah, yeah. I
I
think we
have.
would be having some over emails. I think yeah, we can
I'll
get
share
them.
them.
At least
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can
Yeah,
get the structure or how you were
sure.
able to tenses.
But they are not very best writings. I would not suggest you to follow them. Rather, I would say go on to YouTube and go with the J's videos, because he not only explains the structure, he makes you literally write a whole writing in his way, and I used to do that a lot. And I
Yeah.
think there was one more book.
Yesterday we did this exercise, Gaurav, where we
Okay.
sat down and we wrote the essay here. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of going step by step. Where I
Yeah.
wrote the essay though.
Okay.
And next step,
Sure.
so Nancy, now we will implement here in the class where I'll give you a topic and I will make you write on one section at a time. So you would be writing the introduction, the body, the conclusion. So it will be a group effort where we would write one complete essay, but that would not be written by me now. So you would be writing one section at a time. And of course, going to Jay, I would also recommend. It's a very good experience in 40 minutes or so. You get to see
Mm.
how to write about different sections.
I think there was one more book, IELTS Band 9 something, which you gave me,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
I'll share
also
that
helped
book
me a
with you.
lot here.
Yeah. IELTS book 9. It is vocabulary 9. I'll send this book to
Yeah,
all of you. Yeah.
yeah. So, any more questions?
I'm
Okay,
sure they would.
I'll take that as a no. But yes, if there are any more questions, maybe after this session, then uh, feel free to reach out to Rajiv sir, and then yes, we are connected. We have a good relation since about 2 years or so,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it has been grown since then. So I can definitely reply back to Rajiv sir, and uh,
I'll just call you back.
other than that, all I would say is thank you so much, Rajiv sir, for giving me an
Thank
opportunity
you, Gaurav. Thank you for taking out the time.
to
And
giving back something. Uh, other than that, all the very best to everyone. I hope you guys really work hard and able to achieve your score required score for different purposes. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
thank
Okay,
you,
goodbye.
Gaurav. Thank you. Take care. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye bye.
Thank you, all of you. Have a good day.
Thank you, God. Thank you, sir.
Okay.